These are the plaintiffs, Chioma Owolumo and Ifoma Ogwina. They say they got a flat tire, and the defendant sent one of his guys to change the tire, and he put a donut-type thing on their car. Next day, the tire came unhinged, and the donut flew off, damaging the car, something awful. They're suing for $2,737.20. The cost to repair the car. This is the defendant, Mike. He says he changed thousands of tires every year. He knows how to bolt a tire onto a car, thank you very much. No way he's responsible. And he's not about to be blamed for something he didn't cause. He's accused of not tightening things up.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket. The plaintiff claims that she is lucky to be alive after the tire the defendant put on her car flew off and almost killed her. She crashed as a result. The defendant saying he's changed thousands of tires. He knows what he's doing. It's the case of I'm a little bit loosey-goosey.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Owolumo, you were driving, and was it Ms. Ogwin's car?
Yeah, that's my mom.
Okay, I got you. All right, so tell me what happened.
Yeah, so pretty much I was driving, like most people, got a flat tire, was able to safely pull to the side of the road. And I know myself, I can't change a tire, so that's why I have AAA. But I tried to call them and they said they don't go, because I was on I-80 and they don't go there. So then they sent the towing company.
All right, so you reached out to them, they came over. Now, you didn't actually go over yourself, right, Mr. Mike?
No, not me.
You sent a driver.
Correct. But that's not the way how things are dispatched.
Oh, how are things dispatched?
So the only way that you can go out, and she wasn't on Route 80, she was on the Garden State Parkway. But the only way for someone to do a service on the parkway is if someone's contracted. Only a handful of companies are contracted to do service on the parkway, and it must be dispatched by the Turnpike Authority for you to go out there and do a service. So we were dispatched directly by the Garden State Parkway.
By the Turnpike Authority. Okay, I got you.
Correct.
All right, so in any event, I can see how memories might fade because when did this happen? 2015?
Exactly. And a lot has happened in my life between that.
Well, I know, yes, there's been a lot of time that's passed. So they came and did you have a spare in your car or no?
Yeah, I had the spare in my car. That was the donut that came with the Volvo.
The donut that came with the Volvo. All right, so now the donut, we call it a donut because it's smaller than a real tire, right, Mr. Mike?
Yes.
Correct.
All right, and a donut is intended to be a very temporary fix, right? So they put the donut, you drive away, and what happens?
So as I'm driving, I hear a noise from my car. I don't know where it's coming from. All I know is that it was not there when I set out initially that day. It was not there prior or even during the time that my car got a flat tire. But it was a weird clanging noise, and I thought, okay, let me just hurry on home because I don't know, maybe this is how donuts are supposed to be. So, yeah.
What time of the day or night was it when you got the donut put on?
It was during the day. I just remember it was light out for sure. Like probably.
Why didn't you just drive somewhere and get the tire changed directly from there?
The way that the noise was being made, I didn't really trust it. So, and I was like,
well, you drove all the way home. If you're hearing the noise, why don't you pull over and call the tow company again, or call the Turnpike Authority again? Instead, you drive all the way home, and what happens? Nearby. 3 days later. Okay, well then if it's really nearby, why didn't you go to a nearby tire store and get the tire changed right away?
Yeah, so as soon as I got home, I made the appointment with Volvo to say, hey, I don't know what's going on in my car, but I want to bring it in as soon as possible. So they gave me an appointment for the 12th. So that's 3 days later. I did not touch that car until I was getting ready to drive it to my appointment.
What ends up happening? You on your way to Volvo, what happens?
Yeah, so on my way to Volvo, that weird noise is still going on. I'm driving in the left lane at the speed limit, but I'm not driving slowly. And all of a sudden my car starts to violently shake, just all of a sudden shake. And like, what the heck is going on? And then all of a sudden I feel the left side of my car drop and like bounce down. And then I hear a screech. And then like in a split second, I'm like, okay, so let me try and pull this car over to the side. I was kind of just in shock, and even though I was kind of horizontal on, the highway, I like was able to get it to the side. And so then I turned my car off, came out, and I saw, oh, the donut is gone.
And your car had actually hit the pavement?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's look at Mr. Mike. I would like to talk to you. According to the Volvo dealership, it is my opinion that spare tire installed by tow company on the Garden State Parkway was not installed properly, and customer was driving and spare was loose, causing the spare tire to fall off and the vehicle to hit the ground, damaging aforementioned components. All right. Let me hear from you, and let me hear what your defense is. She wants you to pay almost $3,000 because she says all this is your fault, your company's fault. Go ahead.
Sure. So as I said earlier, we're contracted with the Garden State Parkway. Only a handful of contractors are contracted with them. You have to meet very stringent requirements in order to tow for that roadway. And our number one priority to provide service for them is to get people off there as quickly and safely as possible. If you have to keep in mind, we're working on the side of a shoulder. You see people flying by 70 miles per hour. She happened to have a donut. We put the donut on, and
so were you in a rush, and did you not tighten everything because you're in a big hurry to get her off the parkway? I mean, that's how you're sounding.
You have to picture the kind of scenario you're in on the side of a roadway when you have cars whizzing by you 70 miles per hour. Is that
it's very dangerous.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is we're not in a shop. We don't have the equipment to jack something up, to inspect the wheel, to see if there's any further damage. A donut is designed to go into a vehicle to get you quickly and safely to your repair shop or to a point of safety. So the issue that we had here is that the wheel fell off 3 days after we performed service on the car. Now, she claims that she didn't go anywhere for 3 days, but she didn't send us any kind of proof that she'd gone anywhere for 3 days. We have no idea. She could have been driving all over the state. She could have been going 80 miles an hour, which could have caused the wheel to come off. We have no idea. So the second reason why we couldn't claim liability for this is because she admitted that a sound was coming from this tire as she was driving home. Now, it's reasonable and logical for a person to know if they just had their tire changed and a sound is coming from the car, why did she make the conscious decision to drive that car again? If she would have called us up in that 3-day time frame before she got into an accident and said, hey, you guys changed my tire, there could have been an issue with it. It's making a noise. I don't feel safe. Would you guys mind coming out to check?
Miss Iwalumo, none of this would have happened if when you drove home, let's assume for a moment you didn't drive for 3 days. A donut shouldn't be on a car. No, hold on one second. I'll give you the floor in a moment. I'm in the middle of a question. Let's assume you didn't drive a donut shouldn't be on a car for 3 days. You go from there to the tire shop, okay? Unless it's the middle of the night, then you go to the tire shop in the morning. But here's the thing that's bothering me. What's bothering me is you're hearing a noise on the way home and you don't stop driving on it. Not only that, you don't call AAA to tow it from your house to Volvo. You drive it to Volvo, if in fact you were on your way to Volvo, which is a big assumption that we're all making. But let's assume that that is completely true. You're driving it to Volvo when you've been hearing that it's making noise. I mean, that doesn't sound like a safe thing to do. And then you just keep ignoring the noise. You drive home and keep ignoring it. Then you drive to Volvo and keep ignoring it. Now, I can take a minute and map this out and find out where your house is, where Volvo is, where your car wheel went off. But what's the point? If you're driving it and you know you're driving it while it's making noise, who is that on? Why would that be on them?
So the thing is, if the people that just put this donut on and I hear a sound, I wouldn't trust them again. I wouldn't stop my car and trust them to come back and do something different.
So don't. Why are you driving it? It's fine. Don't trust them. Call someone else or get off the parkway and then call AAA or drive home because you made it home and then have AAA tow it to Volvo. Why are you driving it again?
So I was 5 minutes away. I was 5 miles, away from home at that point where I got the donut placed on. And then, I have never driven with a donut before. I don't know what is going on. So I hurry home and we made the appointment. That was the soonest appointment they had.
Okay. All right, let me hear from you, Mom. You're dying to say something. Go ahead.
Okay, the first thing I want to say is that Chioma was barely 21 years old at this time. So it's not the decisions she made are probably not the decisions an experienced driver would have made. So she was a young girl, college student. She's never been in an accident. She's never had any problems. So I didn't expect her to have the experience to say, okay, this noise is probably coming from here. Let me go here. So
when she came home, does she live with you? And when she came home, did she tell you the car's making noise?
I was the one who told her, call Volvo immediately. She came home. I said, park this car, don't touch it. But I didn't think it was anything serious, so I didn't even go to check out the car.
Because you're not 21. You're not 21, and so why didn't you? And you have AAA. Why not just have AAA tow it to Volvo?
We could have done that, but like I said, I didn't think it was anything serious at all. I thought it was just, okay, little things, just go to Volvo, they'll check it out. It did not cross my mind it had anything to do with the tires. So, little noise.
So if nobody thought it was a big deal, maybe people were driving it for 3 days.
No. I
mean, it's 2015. No. Do you remember 2015?
I do, because, yes, I do.
Tell me how you plan to prove this case besides this little typewriting from Volvo. Do you have because it's kind of a big jump for him to decide what made the spare be loose 3 days later. It is my opinion it wasn't tightened. I mean, he's right. The defendant's right. Anything can happen in 3 days. You could be driving it because you don't think it's a big deal. You could hit something and it could be loose. A donut is a totally temporary solution. You're talking about blaming them for not tightening it correctly. And the only evidence you have is the Volvo guy guessing because he has no idea. It is not, the fact that he sees wheel bolt holes in the hub bearing were egg-shaped, that was indicative of customer's spare tire being loose. Yeah, we know that the tire got loose eventually. We just don't know what made it loose. We know that thing ripped right off and your darn car, and you're very lucky that you're safe and healthy, that the car, so yeah, we know the thing came loose, but how do we deduce that it is as a result of them and an improper job versus it's 3 days later? You don't know the first thing about this. There are rules about driving on a donut. You can't drive faster than X. You can't drive longer than X. And none of this is known by you. And it's just, when you come to court, you have the burden of proving by a preponderance of the evidence that your version is correct. And I don't think that you're proving it just based on that sentence by that guy, which I think is pure supposition. I don't believe that you have proven that they owe you $3,000 based on what I've listened to. My verdict in this case is for the defendant.
So the plaintiffs fail. Let's talk to them now, see how they react to this. I can't help but wonder, what are you thinking right now? You waited 5 years to come to court, and now you're here, and look what happened. What are you thinking?
I think it's still ridiculous that someone, as he even stated, could rush through, do a shoddy job at replacing my tire, and then I have my life put at risk, but it's not his fault. It's just interesting, but...
Fact is, you just didn't have enough proof to convince the judge that the defendant was guilty. So I'm sorry about that, but that's the way it is. On the other hand, Mike, how do you feel? I presume you feel vindicated to a degree. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I'm sorry what happened to the plaintiff, but I think a lot of people forget sometimes that tow truck operators, they're first responders too, and we put our lives out there every single day. I think people forget that, and, that's always been my message, and that's why I'm in this industry, is because we try to help people, so.
Are those donut tires, are they safe enough?
I would not drive one or recommend anyone driving on them to go from your breakdown location directly to a repair shop. If they're not there, if it's after hours, park it there, leave it there. If you got to drive home at a short distance, call a tow truck, spend the extra few bucks, just have it towed. It's not worth the risk.
That's probably very good advice. Thank you very much. Okay.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I learned something there. That'll do it for this case. Time for Harvey. Harvey?
So, Doug, I mean, look, the judge said that the plaintiff didn't meet the burden of proof. I want to explain this because it's really important. If you have a service performed for you and you have reason to believe it wasn't performed correctly, like here, where the plaintiff heard this kind of banging noise as she was driving, and you don't do anything about it, it may end up your responsibility, at least in part, even if the job wasn't done correctly. That's because you have a responsibility to minimize your damages. In the law, it's called mitigation of damages. If you know that you're suffering damage, for example, if you know something's wrong with a tire, but you keep driving and you know something bad's going to happen and you don't do anything about it, you're at the very least partially responsible for what actually happens. So you've got to be vigilant when you have a service performed. You've got to listen and look, and if things don't seem right, you have to take corrective action. If you don't, you could end up in the wrong end of a lawsuit.
So we started dating in January. I was also dating another John.
Yeah, how about that? You had a long list of Johns. I don't know where I stood on that list, but what did you get?
I got a dozen roses in the morning, and then I got another dozen roses in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So
And
I
who
was
sent them?
well, I was thinking they were from each John, but I didn't know.
Because they came from John.
Because they came from John. That was so I called the florist.
Right.
And then found out that it was just a florist error. Right. And that the only John who had sent me flowers was you. And the rest is history.
And it was about a year later you got a ring.
Right.
Right?
Under threat of ultimatum.
Yeah, there was an ultimatum that you laid
I told you
down.
that on our first date. I said, don't flatter yourself.
Right.
I just spent 6 years in a relationship. I'm hitting 30.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an old maid in my culture. You got a year to figure out what you're doing. And I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to whine. I'm not going to pressure. I'm just going to be gone.
Right.
So think back to this moment in this discussion because I don't have any more time to waste.
I think I made the right choice.